Hello, my name is Vint Cerf. I'm the co-inventor of the Internet. I wish I could be with you in person, but my calendar didn't cooperate. But I would like to spend a few minutes to talk a bit about the origins of the Internet, its evolution, and the implications of that evolution for its governance. Let me start by reminding you that the Internet was designed in a scalable and evolvable way. It emerged out of the study of packet switching technology. Parties involved in that study included not only engineers in the United States, but in Europe, in Italy, and elsewhere, who were very interested in this alternative to circuit switching for computer communication. Packet switching has some interesting properties, and the Internet makes use of them. The case of the Internet packets, the things that flow from end to end in the network, is very similar to the way postcards work. Postcards don't know how they're being carried. They could go on a bicycle or an airplane or a car or a boat. Similarly, the internet packets don't know whether they're being carried over an optical fiber or a satellite link or a radio channel. Postcards don't know what's written on them, and the internet packets actually don't know, or the network itself doesn't realize what the contents of those packets are. It just knows it's a little bag of bits that need to be carried from one place to another. The interpretation of the meaning of the internet packets is just like the interpretation of the meaning of what's on a postcard. The person receiving the postcard interprets what's on the postcard. So if you wanted to send a postcard in French or German or Russian or something else, the postal service doesn't have to change just because of what's written on the postcard, except for the fact that the address of the origin and the destination needs to be interpretable by all of the postal services in the global system, just like the internet addresses need to be correctly interpreted by all the various routers that make up the network of networks that we call the internet. The internet's origins are from a kind of bottom-up philosophy, a very collaborative, cooperative, and consensus-based decision-making process where good ideas are put on the table, they are debated. If there is consensus, they're adopted, and the network continues to evolve. Our standards-making practices are very similar in the same fashion. They're very consensus and very meritocratic in their nature. The other thing which is interesting about the internet is that if it's necessary, new institutions are spawned at need. So for example, as the internet's evolution began back in the 1970s, it became clear that we needed some kind of a body that would pay attention to the technology of the internet and how it was evolving. So we created an internet architecture board, which had the responsibility for documenting and developing the standards for the internet. Eventually, that spawned something called the Internet Engineering Task Force, which today has the responsibility for standards making in the system. In addition to that, we created other institutions. For example, when the domain name system was invented in the 1980s, we needed to have places where those domain names were registered. So we invented the notion of registries. We invented the notion of registrars, where people could register second-level domains in the top-level domain registry system. We also had to spread the load for allocating and managing internet addresses, the IP addresses. And to do that, today there are 5 regional internet registries that manage the allocation of the numeric IP address space to the internet service providers that need them. When it became clear that much of this activity, which had been sponsored by the government, should be done in the private sector in a multi-stakeholder way, including the private sector, the civil society, the engineering and academic community, and the government, an organization called ICANN was created, the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. I think you'll find if you look at the various institutions that make up the Internet's ecosystem that all of them have this very collaborative, consensus-oriented, bottom-up model. All the stakeholders at interest for a particular matter have an opportunity to express opinions, to raise issues, and to try to help develop a consensus on the way forward. The internet has benefited enormously from that style, and my prediction is it will continue to benefit greatly from that mode of operation. I would say that this multi-stakeholder model has been strongly endorsed by an expert panel which was convened a couple of years ago by ICANN to make recommendations for how internet governance might evolve. There is a major initiative that took place in Brazil called the Net Mundial effort, and that Net Mundial meeting produced a very, very important document which codifies much of the multi-stakeholder model principles around which the multi-stakeholder activities are centered. So at this point, I must tell you that I served as chairman of the board of ICANN for 7 years and on the board for 8 years. And during that time, I watched ICANN develop and evolve itself using a very important bottom-up feedback loop to assess how well its mechanisms were performing, how well its components were working. And I watched as the ICANN institution itself changed with time in order to adapt to need, adapt to perceived requirements coming from the community that makes up its internal ecosystem. My belief is that the multi-stakeholder model is fundamental to the Internet's continued health. We want to maintain the Internet as a single, uniform, interoperable system so that no matter where you are in the world, any transaction, any interaction that you perform will work the same way no matter where you are. This unity of the Internet is what gives it its value and its power. No matter where you are, no matter what company you happen to be working with or for or running, no matter which government you're involved in, any interaction that you have with the Internet should have the same fundamental response no matter where you are in the world. This uniformity, of course, creates huge opportunities for global marketing, for the opportunity to deliver products or to identify potential consumers literally anywhere in the world. This uniform and interoperable Internet is worth preserving, and I hope in the course of your deliberations you will see that as well. So thank you so much for allowing me to take this much of your time. I hope that you'll have a very productive meeting, and I look forward to hearing to the reports that come back in consequence. In the meantime, I hope I'll see you on the net.